everybody. This is Daniel. Welcome again to the Screenly Changelog. We're joined today with, of course, our CEO and co-founder, Viktor Petersson. And we have our head of channel, Udi, joining us here as a special guest. And happy to be here again for episode 10 of the Screenly Changelog. So,
episode 10 indeed.
Double digits. We've had a very exciting last couple weeks. We actually all saw each other in real life, which is amazing for a fully remote company. We were all at InfoComm 2025 in Orlando last week, meeting a ton of different people in the AV signage space, and was a really great time. So, Viktor, you made it back. Udi, you made it back.
We did indeed. Yeah, no, it's good. We were going into the show. We were a bit nervous, like we mentioned in the last podcast, right, about if attendance would be low. But I just saw the numbers today, actually, and the numbers from last year were actually higher than last year, which is good because we expected it to be lower because all of the big TV manufacturers were absent, more or less.
Yes.
So there was a big concern in the signage industry, really, about if it will be a flop this year, but it wasn't. So it was good.
Well, there was plenty of places.
31,000 attendees, right, this year?
Something like that, yeah.
I read somewhere, 97 countries.
Not bad.
That's crazy. And there was definitely plenty of walking space. I know I went on a few laps myself, and reaching the end was a little bit of an effort. I'll say that. So
it's not as bad as Fira in Barcelona, but it's up there.
In Fira, when you got to the other end, there was another whole warehouse building to do. So it was,
and then another after that. It's just a never-ending
It was
walk.
kind of unending. That's right.
I mean, it's not bad for Orlando. You get to beat your steps targets every day, and it's air conditioned. It could be much worse outside in June.
Yes, this is true.
That's true.
So cool. So we had a big week at InfoComm, and one of the big points of the show was to debut our latest digital signage player, the Screenly Player Max Make 2, and we have it here. So, Viktor, why did we make another signage player that looks way better than the previous ones?
Yeah, we learned a lot since we started doing the first one. Our last player, the Screenly Player Max Mark 1, as we call it today, used to be called Player Max, was our first venture into doing hardware. And anybody who's ever done hardware realizes quickly that it's a lot harder than software. There are a lot more moving parts, a lot more difficult things, and it's a lot difficult to make changes. We learned a lot from doing the first player, and some of the assumptions we made around the first one was around it being a requirement for it to be fanless. And what we realized as we've been selling these units for a while now, that is actually less of a requirement than we anticipated. So the new Max Player Mark II is not fanless like the previous one, but it is much more compact. So if you deploy this in an office environment, it's much more compact. It fits easily behind a TV. You can just pop it in there. So that's one of the big design changes. But the other reason why we switched vendor as well for the signage place, because we wanted to work with a company that really has the same DNA as us when it comes to security. So we partnered up with this company called System 76. I've had Carl, the founder there, on my podcast, which we'll link to in the show notes. We'll also so we worked with them for a while, and why we wanted to work with them is because they are experts. Like, they've done Linux on a desktop longer than anybody else, essentially. Carl, the founder of System 6, he's the guy that Michael Dell literally called to get input and feedback on when Dell was looking to get into the Linux on a desktop world. So they've been doing this for a long time. They are experts at this stuff, right? So we wanted to work with them in particular, so we kind of handpicked them as a vendor because of their depth in know-how on producing really good quality hardware. And they're also like with the overlap of like Linux. So if you do a Venn diagram between companies that do really well, really good hardware, really good software, and also master Linux, that Venn diagram is very, very tiny, and they play in that small overlap. So that's why we partner with these guys, and it's an improved device. It has better hardware, better security, better all around, really, better performance. We're really excited about this device, and we have some really cool things coming up that we're going to enable on this device as well. But that's really the long and short. We are now assembling these in the US as well, which is another big, from a supply chain security perspective, is important. So
yeah, so open that up a little bit more. So a lot of our visitors at the booth, they were they looked at that very favorably. So
correct.
In terms of having the device being manufactured in the U.S. and having more
assembled,
assembled
not
in the U.S. and having more oversight over that assembly process, why should purchasers and why were they interested in that? Explain for the viewer.
It really comes down to supply chain security, right? And it's really is knowing how things get assembled and what kind of risk elements you have in the supply chain. And you have seen a lot of stories in the past about attack vector getting injected in the supply chain. So that might be a rogue employee in a manufacturing site that injects some there in the hardware or replaced with rogue firmware. There are a lot more attack vectors there. And bringing this back to the US, where we have most of our customers, reduce our attack vector a fair bit, actually. And particularly we work with a company that is as security conscious and have a long history of doing good quality software and hardware, like System 36 and very much into open source. It just raised the bar. So I think that's really the reason for us, really, and why people view it very favorably.
And quite unique in the signage space as well.
100%. I don't think it's a stretch to say that this is the most secure signage player out there. The only one that would come close would be Chrome OS, right? But that's more a generic PC, more so than a dedicated signage device.
Right. So that was part one of the main points at the InfoComm conference. The other thing we were also debuting was our partner program. So we've played around with this a lot in Screenly in the past, and first iterations, I'd say, were kind of half baked, to be fair. But the spirit was there, and we recently decided to really go all in on that. And Udi's heading that up. So Udi, maybe just introduce yourself real quick to the audience and tell us why people should care about the Screenly Partner Program.
Sure. So I joined the team recently, and I have a background of almost 25 years in cloud software, open source, AppSec, and kind of those areas where I think I met Viktor about probably 9-10 years ago.
Probably in that ballpark. Yeah. I know.
And really, like, the focus for us, one of the focus points, as you said, Dan, at InfoComm, was to launch a proper partner program. So Screenly has ambitions to scale Screenly, and we identify partners, and that could be integrators, resellers, managed service providers, or any combination of the three. Obviously, distributors are in the picture as well, to go with us on that journey, right? And you talked a little bit about security, and I think I spent a lot of the show walking around, having conversations in the booths, hunting a few partners so they come back to ours and all that good stuff. And one of the things I think I noticed, and I don't have 2024 or 3 to compare to, really digital signage, and it seems almost obvious to say it, is part of a complex and distributed cloud-based architecture, right? And if you're a CMS or another digital signage solution that doesn't understand that and doesn't understand that comes with cloud level security requirements, then that's an issue. And I think partners are getting it. Yes, partners also, I mean, there's a quote, I watched a couple of talks, and a quote from the Diversified CEO was that customers pay for results, not the project, which I love. But also, to any integrator worth their salt knows that to deliver the project, you need delivery across the life cycle. And that obviously I think there's more and more mention of security, and partners are getting that. And I think it's just a great time for Screenly to bring those two things together, where the market's moving and its readiness to scale via the channel or via partnerships as well. So
Yeah,
we
I
had
mean,
some great conversations at the booth.
yeah. Let me just chime in on the whole like industry trends, right? I think because I think you're spot on, right? I've been going to these shows for a long time. It's only, I would say, in the last 12 months we're actually starting to have our sophisticated conversations around security. I don't think that was even part of the conversations. Like we were way too early, honestly, when it comes to like doubling down on security. But it's in the last 12 months, people are really waking up, right? You've seen so many of these outages being caused by various security issues and whatnot. And historically, like many of the CMSs in the signage world, they came from an ad agency world or marketing agency turned like digital signage CMS, right? And
Mm-hmm.
they're not engineering firms, they're marketing firms. So that shows when you're talking about actually security posture, like when you're diving deep into these security questions, they are completely lost, right? So I think you're spot on.
Yeah, one thing that came up in the show a lot, you guys were mentioning, was security beyond buzzword bingo. So
Yes.
tell me, explain to me what other providers might say when they're playing this buzzword bingo game, and why there really isn't like a lot of meat to what they're saying.
I mean, I can start with
What
that.
should
Like,
the
yeah,
consumer look out for when people are giving the illusion of this security?
the problem with saying that something is secure that is extremely ambiguous. Like, what does that even mean? Like, anybody can say we're secure. Like, by what standard? Like, sure, maybe you have an ISO or SOC 2 or something. Like, yeah, we've done that. But frankly, that's not security. Security goes far deeper. It's a cultural thing that needs to be far deeper ingrained in the company. And I think that really is what we mean. That like you can't look at any company's website without them saying, "Oh, we're secure." Like it's just like AI. Yeah, sure, we have AI.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody just have these tick boxes of things they have, but like what does it actually mean? And I think
Right.
going deeper down, I think we have done a great job at expressing that on the security page. What do we actually mean by that? Like, if you want to go into the juicy details of what does it mean that we claim that we're secure? Like, well, here are the actual reasons why we make this claim, which goes far beyond any of the compliance frameworks, what they mandate you to do, really. So, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm also curious about Udi. Like, you have a background in cybersecurity. You've done a lot of this work. I'm curious about what your insights on that as well.
Yeah, sure. Like first thing, just an anecdote. When we started talking about doing this together, Victor, you kept talking about security, and it's just like, yeah, okay, but like, how is Screenly secure? And you sent me that webpage, the security webpage on the Screenly website, and it's still my number one absolute favorite webpage from Screenly. It's just very comprehensive, very clear, and just gives you so much confidence that this is real, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
also to answer a bit of Dan's question, what I've noticed many players in the industry talk about is the things around, so network security, right? Like, but these are for someone like Diversify, and I'm back again to the integrator and partner. If they need to deliver a project and now they need to add more constraints because of some network sysadmin requirement with a workforce that is not at that technical level, that slows down the project. That stops them from delivering the results, and it's a problem. And therefore, like security, I think Screenly comes in and has a wider view that not just takes care of the software and hardware, but also kind of perhaps releases some of those other constraints around it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I spent a few years in application security and cyber, and very easy to get confused and bamboozled, and like and CISOs have a very tough job trying to understand what to invest in for sure. Um, and we can never forget that like most breaches involve employees, right? Somehow, whether it's phishing or simply
Yeah.
holding the door open for someone in the office.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think just that intelligent, holistic view of security, and also an honest view from Screenly is what I really like, and what's really consistent with cybersecurity vendors, that that really get it. It's like we don't do everything, but here's what we do really well, and here's what else it can enable for you, whether you're a partner or a customer.
Yeah,
So
so
that's
let's jump back to the partnership program there, and security obviously is one of our main product differentiators. Talk to a potential partner listening on what are some scenarios that would be a really good marriage between Screenly and the partner. So for someone thinking, okay, you do signage, great. I do X, Y, and Z for signage already. I kind of have it figured out. Maybe there's some annoying things, but why should I take the jump to explore something new? So what would be some of those perfect partnership marriages that you envision?
So I think kind of the headline for me in general, when you're trying to to sell a security message into an audience that is not security focused, what I find useful is talking about trade-offs, right? Like, because you might get top-down security mandated by someone, but then usability suffers, right? So I think Screenly is just that great combination of it's so easy to use and deploy and manage screens at scale, while you're not trading off that security. And I think it's not for every vertical, it's not for every partner, but it's for, I think, some of the people that we saw at the booth, for example, in the education space.
Yeah.
Houses of worship, I did not expect such a big number of folks from churches and such to come to the booth and talk about real world problems that we can solve. And that was super exciting as well. And also, I would say the not for sure retail, but not the high end displays that keep moving as you move around the shop, right? Like most of retail signage is really just delivering the right messages, promotional or whatever they are. So I think within those spaces, obviously the corporate space would be a big one for Screenly traditionally as well. Just thinking about that trade-off, and that trade-off doesn't have to be that big. I don't know, Victor, if we probably have a few more thoughts here.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I was really, a message that really resonated well when speaking to people at InfoComm in particular, and this is something that we've been talking about for a while, is life cycle management. So it goes like beyond if it's like, oh, you drop this device on the network, who owns it? Like, who makes sure it's updated and secure, right? Because this, like, security is not a one-off. Like, you're never done with security. Like, you never. It's an ongoing battle, right? And you start with making assumptions. Like the assumption we always make when we deploy screen devices: assume a hostile network. That is the first thing, right? You assume that everything that's on that network is just gonna try to hack you, right? But if you start with that assumption, it makes it a lot easier for people to deploy it, because we will. Again, going back to the life cycle, the fact that we own that, it's our responsibility. And kind of going to your point, Udi, about making it easy for end users, we take care of that. We make sure like we own the responsibility of bringing these devices up to date. It's not the vendor. It's not the end user. We take care of that. Simultaneously, that dichotomy of making it easy for end users is what we need to balance. Like we want to have a user interface that's very simple for a non-technical user to manage, and I think we've really struck that dichotomy between those two paradoxes, I guess. I think that's where my head is at, and I think that really like resonates when you speak to CISOs and so on. They are fully aware of the fact that security cannot come at the cost of usability, because that's unfortunately the reality of a lot of enterprise security.
And I love that focus of day one, day two, right? Like so many vendors are focused on day one. And I love that point about, but what's going to happen 9 months, 29 months down the road? When the player's still there, you've probably gone through 3 or 4 installers, right? Like that. That's a great approach.
So at the show, like there were a lot of conversations, like that, in the sense of, hey, we could have some off the cuff one-on-ones with people who are really doing the work day to day, right? Like it wasn't sales or a marketing approach, or it was just, hey, like this is what we've been experiencing, this is what they've been experiencing, and both learning from that. So one thing that came from a lot of those conversations is a real need for mobile data in signage. So Sometimes that was the people just not having access to internet any other way. Sometimes they were fully in environments where there were tons of Wi-Fi networks they could use, but they don't really want to deal with them. Lots of different use
or
cases.
not allowed to. It's probably
Or
more
not
common
allowed
use
to.
case.
Also true. So there were a lot of these requests. Victor, I know you had some too, so maybe talk a little bit about that, and then where's Screenly head at where it comes to mobile data connectivity and digital signage?
Yeah, we are exploring that because I think that's we've had serious conversations from serious people that are very keen to. I think you put it well, Udi, in the recap. It's just like making enrollment easy, and that captures even connectivity, right? Because like without that, it's not easy, right? If you have to go and manually configure every device and connect it to a Wi-Fi or whatever it may be, like that's not easy deployment, right? So how we can make it easier for our customers to drop in these devices and just auto provision them, like drop it behind a TV, it's online. That's all your technician needs to do. Like we spoke to some integrators and like they were talking about how long it takes to prepare every signage player they deploy in the field, right? Like they have like literally like they have factories essentially that just do pre-provisioning and configuration of these units before they go out in the field. And then when they come out in the field, there's still a lot of post deployment work that needs to be done. So that's something that we took away as an interesting lesson from conversations where like, how can we make that even easier? Like sometimes, like if you're dropping a screen play on the network, sure, we can do a lot of automations, but what about environments where it's not possible? Like where there's either no Wi-Fi or you're not allowed to connect to the Wi-Fi, or there's simply, it could be so many situations that requires, because a lot of this comes down to politics at the end of the day. Like it's not that there isn't connectivity available, it's because the people who own the network will not allow you to bring on this device, right? We've seen that in many deployments before. Like it's a really difficult maze to navigate to get your devices like approved to plug into the network in the first place.
Yeah. So I think with a lot of integrators too, like the signage component is often like a add-on to their contract, and sometimes they're dealing with venues that say, oh yeah, we have the signs, and then they come to find out like it really means they have a TV, and then from the venue's perspective, it's like, oh yeah, well we have a TV, like just get it working. And from their end, they're like, okay, like this is a ton of work we did not budget time for. And we have a ton of other things, and like the show's going live, and like what are we going to do? So having the ability to have a player where everything's set up and it's really just a matter of give it power and plug it into the TV was definitely something that a lot of people were talking about as an ideal scenario. So
and I liked somebody was talking about kind of a lowest common denominator of things to do when you get on site, right? Like if my person has to like 5 or 7 things to do and I can reduce that list to 3, like that is
right. Yeah, exactly. So another big group that we talked to, and Udi, you mentioned this, was house of worship people. So what is their digital signage need? Essentially, they're running multiple live events every day. And they're having to service messaging to people in between these live events in the meantime. And basically everyone has this kind of like one-off hack together solution for what they're using now. And they're really looking for answers there. So Victor, give us some information on how House of Worship and live event AV specialists can use live feed video and also digital signage and have that switch over in a seamless way.
Yeah, I think I should prefix this conversation for our international viewers, because I don't think the European mind can quite fathom the scale and scope of these churches, right?
The European mind cannot comprehend this, is the meme.
No, I don't think we, at least for me, it's mind-boggling when you speak to these this cohort of like the sheer scale of their AV operations is just crazy.
So let's set the stage. So massive parking lot. Then there's billboards for personal injury all around. Okay, and then what's the next thing? And then there's a
Florida man knows how to coat it.
And then there's a ton of people. No, only kidding. So these are huge operations, is what we're trying to say. Like, this is
Yeah.
not a one-off thing where they're just saying, "Oh, it would be nice to have a video." These are
No,
professionally
this.
staffed
Oh yes,
organizations with
these are skilled
full-on AV
people running them.
teams and
Yes.
huge needs.
Yes. So the biggest pain point we heard from this cohort is that they have the common terminology they use for their buildings, like they call them campuses, right? Because they're multiple buildings oftentimes, and they have vast AV operations with a lot of different types of media, right? Signage being one of them. And the recurring thing we heard from this cohort was people, they want to repurpose all the signage so that they can provide live streams to their signage from other feeds, right? So they already have a live stream, perhaps. Maybe they're doing live streams, maybe they're doing just recording, whatever it is, but they have feeds that they can real-time stream. And what these guys really want is to repurpose all their screens, entire campus, in a secure way, manage to say, when the service begins at this set hour, switch all screens over like that to the live feed. And then when the live feed is over, jump them back to signage mode. So this is really what we heard. And this was not by any means an insulated conversation. This was like, we heard this from 20, 30 people, the exact same story. So we took that to heart and we're like, how can we solve that? And we actually already begun work on how we can build this functionality for them. So it's already something that we've started scoping out to build out to solve for that need. And this goes outside the scope of just house of worship. This goes beyond, like, this is something we heard from enterprise customers as well. Maybe the CEO has a live stream in an enterprise environment. They want to see when that office, when they have their all hands, whatever they want to call it, now switch over all the screens to the live feed. And then when the stream is over, toggle it back to regular signage. So this multi-purpose usage of signage where you can leverage existing infrastructure is something we heard from numerous people. So that is something we scope and building out.
Yeah, in the corporate environment too, there were a lot of requests for like conference room signage where there would be a playlist playing, but then when everyone's in there and they want to switch to the Zoom call or the team call, they can do that. And then when it's finished, then it goes back to the regularly scheduled programming without having to, remember to change the channel or the input source or any of that. Just having a real seamless experience was really highlighted by a lot of people. So
yes, exactly.
Yeah, a couple of things I noticed about these visitors to the booth is one is some of the AV people were also pastors. So you've also, really got the person who owns the customer experience and the kind of realization that AV is not a bunch of wires and plugs. It's actually something to power that experience, and it's a crucial piece of it. And I need to get it right. And then I think the second thing is just like you kind of implied there, Dan, like the sense of these guys are doing serious things, but in a way they're probably also at the kind of ahead of the curve, and some of the other verticals will be there before you know it.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a unique situation where you're, maybe you're running like 4 or 5 live events a day, right? And then you're also trying to then run the show as well in many of these cases, right? So, things have to run perfectly and not take, all your time and attention to be switching things off and on. So, so we did the show. We debuted our new player. We debuted our new partner program, and we had a lot of interesting conversations with potential customers, existing customers, existing and potential partners as well. What were some of your other big takeaways from InfoComm? So, I mean, I think the whole experience can be very overwhelming, and there's a little bit of everything. And what were some takeaways you got from all the flashing lights?
Well, I mean, I didn't think you could squeeze AI into all the things that people say that you can squeeze it into.
True.
Like no
Yes.
boot was complete without some AI nonsense, right?
Right.
And it makes no absolute sense for in 99% of the use cases. But hey, marketing more AI buzzword in there, so here we go.
Yes.
That's one takeaway. The other one is, I mean, it's an interesting show, right? Because signage is only one small. It's much like ISC. Signage is just one small part of it. But like, we were like, well, like a half haul over. We were next to the smoke machines, and that was
Yes.
interesting.
Yes. So, someone needs to come up with
always on.
someone needs to come up with like smoke that doesn't smell like smoke machines. It has a very unique smell. It's just like
Yes.
overbearing. Like, why does this have to have a smell? So, yeah.
But other than that, I think there was some interesting stuff. But it's much of the same. I didn't see anything that was mind-boggling, I guess. I'm not
Mhm.
sure about you guys, but I didn't. There was some cool stuff for sure, but it's a lot. Yeah, more screens, higher resolutions, brighter screens, but it's much of the same, but slightly more, I guess. There was nothing that
Mhm.
really like I was blown away by. To your point earlier, like a lot of this is for flagship installations. Like, oh, this is really cool, but it makes no sense to do a large scale deployment. Like a lot of this stuff is really cool for like one-off installs, and it makes sense
Mhm.
for that, right? But it's nothing that really, I don't know. For me, it was few things that really like drew me in. Like really, I was really impressed by. I'm not sure about you guys if you saw anything that really like wowed you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously saw AI was mentioned everywhere, and you kind of have to. But that doesn't mean that in 2026 we won't see like what that actually means for some vendors, right?
Mhm.
And we've seen the same kind of life cycle, if you will, in the cloud space, right? Where you've got somebody talking about, oh, Gen AI is going to change the world because GPT just came out a month ago, and a couple of years down the line, you start to see what that actually means. So, I
Mm.
mean, that would be interesting to watch. It was my first InfoComm, and I enjoyed walking the 400,000 net square foot hall.
That's right.
And yeah, well, I was very pleased to see there were a lot of co-created booths, kind of hosting different partners together, whether it's a whole booth or something within a booth. Kind of just speaking to the power of partnerships to deliver these,
Yeah.
these complex projects, and obviously great timing in terms of Screenly launching its partner program just now, and hoping to scale through the channel.
And to be
Mhm.
fair, we this was our first event where we actually had a booth, but we have been part of a lot of these booths over the years through partners, but never
Yeah.
actually had our own booth. So yeah, it was an interesting
Right.
experience as well.
Yeah. So this time we had to set it up.
That's right.
We
We
forgot
can't
about
just
that the other
leave
times.
at closing.
Also,
Yeah.
I have to mention a key takeaway for me is watching the master of waving down people at work,
Oh
which is you,
yes,
Dan. Like
Thank you.
yes.
with the little player max in your hand, and just
That's right.
Trap
Well,
them.
yeah.
for those of you listening who were there and got heckled and hawked from the sidelines, uh, apologize for nothing. So, uh, so see you
I
again
think
next
every
year.
single person that stopped enjoyed the interaction.
Yeah, well, I appreciate
And
it.
with
Yeah,
ice cream.
also true. Yeah, we did have ice cream at our booth, which
We did.
was uh, I don't know what to say on that. We had ice cream. That's what we had, and people came and they enjoyed it, and it was very tasty, but wholly distracting from the conversation. So,
We don't sell ice cream.
yeah, I don't know what my thoughts are on it long term. So, um, yeah, no, it was a really good conference. I was really surprised by like how there were kind of these like gaggles of people who were walking around and like uh, industry segment specific, right? So you had like we mentioned the House of Worship people. There was also higher education technologists as well. Everyone walked around in like these kind of little gangs. I guess there were like talks, and then people just kind of branched out after. I thought that was interesting. Um, yeah, and each of these groups you don't really think of as like, hey, we are a technology company, right? But they're all doing things at scale. So, whether that's like running huge house of worship setups, or whether that's running things at even just one, university campus, or even a whole county wide school system, all these, little technical needs, they become real problems that need to be solved, especially at scale, right? And so hearing everyone's perspective from their, unique business or organizational perspective was really interesting to me. And at the end of the day, like, people need to communicate things, right? And so signage is kind of agnostic in that sense of like, hey, whether it's customers or just people or employees, it's a very unique communication medium, right? Like, you don't have to log in to get the message. You don't have to answer the push notification or open your phone. You don't have to read the little pamphlet. Like, it's all just there as you're going through your interactions, and gets the message across. So, and how you make that happen takes some attention to detail, and that's where we come in. So, yeah. So, I mean, I think that covers the show, guys. So, I think it was really productive. We had a lot of conversations with a lot of people. Looking forward to following up on a lot of those going forward. Anything else on your mind, Viktor or Udi? Kind of just do a final round here.
We have a few more things I guess to cover. We are just on the cusp, you heard it here first, to ship our Screenly for Tizen, so for Samsung monitors.
Yes.
So we are just about to launch our Tizen application, which gives us pretty complete coverage. So we have now, obviously, have the regular Screenly players. We have Screenly for Android. We have Screenly for Chrome OS, which works as well. Now for Tizen and for web, we have a pretty complete offering now. So that's something that I wanted to give a shout out to, that we are just about to announce. I guess before we did InfoComm, I came from another show. I came from signage, Digital Signage Europe, the Digital Signage Summit Europe in Munich. So I was on a panel there about AI security. Much smaller event, a much more targeted event than any of these big shows like ISC or DSC or InfoComm. But that was a good show. And Invidis, who's the German analyst firm that runs that, they announced their yearbook. So they basically they did the same session at InfoComm. So they basically, like, that was the first one, then they did a second one at InfoComm, but they do an industry trend analysis there, where they look at what's happening in the industry. And they just published their yearbook, and
nice.
The big trend there, we'll link it up in the show notes, but the big trend is managed signage. So that's something that kind of ties back into what we would kind of opening up the conversation with, like owning the life cycle. So it's something that's coming into a bigger play, and there were some really interesting takeaways from that show of success rates when a shop is managed versus unmanaged. So there were some quotes. There's some really interesting quotes in there, like talking about success rates in terms of like failure points and so on when it's completely managed and versus unmanaged, right? So that's really interesting.
Yeah. So for the audience, explain what some of those differences would be for unmanaged versus a managed signage rollout.
Yeah. So I mean, this is not new, right? So in the IT world large, you've had these big IT consultancy shops that basically managed IT on behalf of companies, right? And largely what it solves, and kind of we're just folding screens into this domain, is a traditional problem you have in signage in particular is that, the player's offline, but that's all you know. You do not know if somebody jacked the power out, somebody disconnected the network, if there's a site-wide network issue, if it's a router or switch that's broken. With a managed solution, like one of these many distributors and integrators are doing, is that they own everything, right? So the switches are managed by them, signage is managed by them. So that means they have much more sophisticated management structures, because they can see in their logs and their audit trails that, oh no, all the signage is down because this one piece of hardware broke or whatever it may be, right? And they can roll a truck and go there, right? So that's a big trend we're seeing, I think, in the industry. That was literally the theme for the entire catalog of Invidis, and there's a lot of interesting trends there. So I thought that was interesting because it kind of ties into what we are seeing as well, particularly with the distal push.
Yeah, and so Udi, so people who interested in learning more about Screenly's partner program, becoming a Screenly partner, what should be their next step if they want to learn more? We'll link something up in the show notes. Reach out.
That's what we'll do. So we've got a partner program. It's fully ready, robust, based on best practice from technology industry, from my experience as well, building channels, developing channels before, and it's fully ready to go. And there was a blog post recently, I think, that we shipped out. But yes,
there was. We'll include that in the show notes too. And I think too, something to emphasize as well is like, hey, all these partnerships they have their unique features. So, anyone listening, no need to, self disqualify on, maybe this or that. Like, let's have a conversation, see where it goes. Right. So.
Oh, and before we wrap up, I got to say congratulations to Dave Haynes, who's retiring, who's the guy who ran 69. So anybody who's been in the industry for a while, everybody knows Dane. Everybody likes Dave. He's retiring. So he had his last event at... it's funny because I was actually at his very last panel before retiring. So I was honored to be on his very last guest before he retired at... Digital Signage Summit Europe. So again, Dave was actually the one who introduced myself to the concept of digital signage. We shipped Screenly, or the first version of Screenly OSC, and he was actually told me that we were doing digital signage. I didn't even know that was a thing. We were just building software.
You were like, "Hey, I need this thing fixed," and he's like, "Oh, by the way, there's a whole industry."
Yeah. He was actually, he gave us probably the first press we ever got was on his blog. He had a roundup of signage for the Raspberry Pi way back in the days when we launched. So we owe Dave a lot to our success. So again, Dave, very much congratulations on the retirement, and you'll be missed in the industry.
That's right. Yes, congratulations, amazing. So hey guys, all right, well, cool. Well, this will wrap up this episode of the Screenly Changelog, and thank you all for listening, and we'll see you on the next one. So bye-bye.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.